question hung in the frozen air, unspoken yet deafening. How does a man face the ghost of the woman he once loved when she falls at his feet in a torn wedding dress? Bitter Creek Station held its breath that morning, winter pressing hard against the wooden platform as the train screeched to a stop. Snow whipped sideways, cutting through coats, slicing across faces. But none of it compared to the shock that hit Caleb Morgan when he saw her. The woman in white, the woman he buried in his heart 4 years ago. The woman he never stopped loving and never forgave. Lillian Hartwell, his Lily, stumbled out of the last railcar like a dying apparition. Her bare feet blue with cold, her wedding gown ruined, torn open at the seams, stained by blood that didn't belong on any bride. She swayed, hair tangled, skin pale as ice, and collapsed hard into the snow. The sound was soft, but for Caleb it cracked the world in half. Jake, standing beside him, gasped as if pulled by something instinctive, something deeper than memory. The boy cried out even though he'd never truly known her. Caleb didn't hear the whispers forming behind him. He didn't feel the storm slicing across his coat. His body moved before his mind did. Instinct overriding reason, anger or the grave he'd tried to push her into. He rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside her. Lily's skin was freezing through the fabric of his gloves, her breath shallow, her fingers trembling as if fighting to hold on to life. Her wedding veil had been ripped away, leaving only a few jeweled pins tangled in her hair. She looked like she had been chased through hell before reaching this station. "Papa?" Jake's voice cracked behind him. Caleb swallowed hard, forcing down every feeling clawing its way up his throat. "Stay back, Jake." He lifted her, and the full weight of her body, frail, nearly limp, sent another shock through him. She weighed almost nothing, as though suffering had hollowed her out from the inside. People on the platform stared, their faces marked by curiosity, pity, and the quiet hunger for scandal in a small frontier town. Martha Callahan, the widowed boarding house owner, pushed through the crowd first. "Caleb Morgan," she scolded, "don't you stand there frozen. Get that girl inside before you lose her." He didn't argue. Couldn't. He carried Lily into the warmth of the boarding house, every step another blow against his chest. Jake trailed behind him, small boots thudding softly on the wooden floor. Inside, the firelight threw shadows over Lily's bruised wrists, the cut at her temple, the purple marks around her ankles. Martha sucked in a sharp breath. Good Lord above. Caleb placed Lily on a cot near the stove, her head rolled to the side, lips trembling as though trying to form words she no longer had the strength for. He felt Jake press against his leg, hiding behind him but peeking out with wide eyes. "Papa, who is she?" Caleb couldn't answer. Not yet. Not when his throat had tightened to a point he couldn't swallow. The doctor was sent for. Shoes thudded down the hallway. Martha's hands moved quickly, covering Lily with blankets, heating water, checking her breathing. Caleb stood motionless, watching, fighting, breaking. He had imagined this moment too many times, in too many ways over 4 long years. Her return, her apology, her explanations, her cruelty, her ghost. But never this. Never her half-dead in a blood-stained wedding dress. "Caleb?" Martha said quietly. "You know you have to stay. She'll wake up frightened. You know who she'll look for." He flinched as though struck. He didn't want to be the one she reached for. He didn't want to be the man she shattered again, and yet he could not step away. A pounding of boots shook the doorway. Dr. Edwin Burke entered, bringing the sharp scent of winter with him. He examined Lily with practiced hands, checking her pulse, lifting her eyelids, inspecting her wounds. She's been through something violent, Burke said. Bruised, exhausted, half frozen. Whoever she's run from meant to break her? Caleb felt Jake grip his coat tighter. Will she live? If she warms up and wakes soon, yes, but she fought hard to get here. The doctor looked between Caleb and the unconscious woman. She came to you. Caleb stiffened. She should have stayed gone. He spoke the words, but they didn't feel true. Not when her face, pale, familiar, unforgettable, lay inches from his hands again. The doctor left. Martha stepped back. The room quieted. Snow hammered the window in steady gusts. And Lily, after hours of silence, finally stirred. A faint breath escaped her lips, and her eyelids fluttered with fragile effort. Caleb leaned in despite himself. Jake inched closer. Lily's voice came out cracked, barely a whisper. Caleb? One word. One name. It cut him deeper than any blade. She reached toward him weakly, her fingers trembling, her eyes unfocused but pleading, as if he were her last anchor to the world. Caleb closed his eyes for a long, painful moment. Everything he had built, anger, distance, the fragile peace he made with her absence, crumbled. He took her hand, slowly, reluctantly, inevitably. When he opened his eyes again, he knew this was only the beginning, and nothing about it would be simple. Lily woke slowly, as though rising from the bottom of a dark river, and the first thing she saw was Caleb's face, hard, shuttered, unreadable. The second was Jake, wide-eyed, clinging to the edge of the cot as if afraid she might vanish if he blinked. Her lips parted, trembling with words that refused to form. Caleb straightened, instinctively pulling Jake a half step behind him. His voice carried no warmth. You're awake. Good. You need to talk. A shadow crossed Lily's expression. Fear, shame, hope, all tangled in a single breath. But she nodded. Martha brought tea, then quietly withdrew, closing the door with the gentle finality of someone who knew the conversation inside would tear open old wounds. Lily's hands shook as she wrapped them around the steaming cup. The heat made her flinch at first. She looked as though she hadn't felt warmth in years. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin, fragile. Caleb, I never left you. I was taken. Caleb's jaw tightened. Every muscle in his body stiffened with defensive disbelief, but he didn't interrupt. The night my father came to our cabin, she continued, he didn't come to talk. He came with men who carried restraints. She swallowed hard, eyes darkening as the memory pulled her under. He told me you had poisoned my mind, that I was unfit, that he had the authority to correct things. I tried to fight, Caleb. I screamed your name until my throat bled, but they dragged me out before you came home. Jake clutched the blanket, confusion clouding his face. Caleb placed a hand on the boy's shoulder to keep him grounded. He declared me insane, Lily whispered. Judge Roderick Hartwell, my father, filed the papers himself. No hearing, no witnesses, just his word against mine. They put me in a private asylum outside Philadelphia. Her fingers tightened around the cup, knuckles white, for 3 years. Caleb looked away sharply, jaw locked, as if afraid his expression might betray the body blow her words delivered. They drugged me, restrained me, isolated me. Every time I begged for Jake, for you, they told me you never wanted to see me again. They said Jake had died of fever, and they showed me a letter, your signature at the bottom, saying our marriage was a mistake, that you regretted everything. She met Caleb's eyes for the first time, I read that letter 100 times before I understood it wasn't yours. Caleb felt the room tilt. That damn letter. 4 years of pain wrapped in ink he had forced himself to accept as truth. I searched for you, he said quietly, voice thick. Your father threatened to have me arrested, said the marriage was annulled, told everyone you'd come home willingly. Lily shook her head slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. I was in a locked cell while he told you that. Jake crawled closer until his knees touched Lily's leg. Mama. The word broke her. Lily cupped his face with trembling hands, her breaths shaking uncontrollably. My sweet boy, I never left you. They told me you were gone. But I felt you. Every day. I held on to that feeling until it was all I had left. Jake pressed his forehead against her chest, and Caleb had to turn away for a moment, swallowing the ache rising in his throat. When Lily continued, her voice was low, desperate. 6 months ago, one of the nurses, Miss Harper, believed me. She unlocked the door and told me to run. I did. I ran until my feet bled. She lifted her ankles from beneath the blanket, revealing healed scars and newer wounds. But freedom wasn't enough. My father wasn't finished. He sent Edgar Whitmore after me. Someone he could control. A man he forced me to marry. Caleb's head snapped toward her, fury flaring bright and sharp. You married another man? Against my will, she whispered. I wasn't conscious when the papers were signed. I woke with a ring on my finger and his name on a certificate I never touched. He kept me locked on his estate for months. I escaped 2 nights ago. I boarded the train with no shoes and no plan except to reach you. Her voice cracked. I knew if I could just reach Bitter Creek, you would see me. Believe me. Caleb stood in the center of the room, chest rising and falling with heavy, uneven breaths. Everything he had built to survive the last 4 years, his anger, his cynicism, his distance, collapsed under the weight of her truth. He didn't know what hurt more, the fact that she had been suffering, or the fact that he had believed she'd left by choice. Caleb, Lily said softly, I know I'm asking for something impossible, but I'm asking anyway. Please, let me stay. Let me prove the truth to you. Let me be Jake's mother again. Let me be your wife again. Silence filled the room. Jake's small hand slipped into Caleb's. Caleb looked down at his son, at the boy's pleading eyes that mirrored his own when he was younger, longing for answers that never came. Caleb exhaled slowly, the decision carving itself into him with painful clarity. 1 week, he said. Lily's breath caught. 7 days, Caleb continued. You live at the ranch, you work, you tell me everything. And if, at the end of it, your story still holds? His voice shook with restrained emotion. Then we'll decide what comes next. Lily nodded, tears falling freely. Thank you. Caleb didn't answer. He simply stepped back, pulling Jake to him protectively. Don't thank me yet, he said quietly. There's a lot you haven't told me, and I'm not the man I was. Lily looked down at her hands. Neither am I. Outside, snow pounded the windows. Inside, 3 lives hung suspended between past and future, bound by love, torn by betrayal, held together by a truth finally breaking through darkness. And the week that would decide everything had just begun. The ranch looked different to Lily than she remembered. Larger, quieter, more weathered by years she had been forced to surrender. When Caleb brought her home the next morning, the sun hung low over the hills, casting long shadows across the snow-crusted fences. Jake rode beside her on the wagon seat, excitement flickering through him in shy bursts. as if he wasn't sure whether he was allowed to hope. Caleb said little. He held the reins with rigid focus, his jaw tight, his shoulders drawn. Every bump in the road seemed to widen the distance between them. But Lily didn't shrink from the silence. She absorbed it. She treated it like another wound that needed time. When they reached the ranch house, Jake hopped down and grabbed her hand without hesitation. That simple gesture nearly brought Lily to her knees. His fingers were small but strong, warm in a way she hadn't felt in years. Not since the night men had dragged her away from his crib. She squeezed back, steadying herself. Caleb noticed, but he didn't intervene. He simply nodded toward the house. "You remember the place," he said. Lily took in every corner. The porch where she used to sit shelling beans, the windows she once hung curtains in, the barn she helped paint, the corral where Caleb taught her to ride. Shockingly familiar, achingly foreign. "I remember," she whispered. Inside, the warmth struck her immediately. The house smelled of wood smoke and coffee, with Jake's drawings pinned crookedly to the wall. Lily touched the edge of one, a stick-figure family with only 2 people. A father and a son. Her throat tightened. "He draws a lot," Caleb said behind her. "Helps him think." She nodded, finding strength in the room's quiet acceptance. This was her home once. It could be again, if she earned it. They worked out a routine quickly, practical and tense. Lily insisted on doing ranch chores, refusing to be treated as a fragile guest. Caleb tried to stop her at first. Old instincts to protect clashing with new boundaries he wasn't ready to break. But she met his protests with steady determination. By midday, she was carrying water buckets, mending harness straps, brushing down horses, and feeding the chickens Jake chased gleefully around the yard. Jake stayed close to her, studying her every move, as if building a memory of the mother he had been denied. He asked small questions. "What's your favorite color? Did you like horses when you were little? Why do you smile like that?" Each one slicing Lily open and healing her at the same time. It was harder with Caleb. They spoke only when they had to. They moved around each other like survivors of different storms, drawn together by the past, but cautious of the future. Some moments hurt more than others, like when Caleb reached for a saddle Lily was lifting and their hands brushed. He froze instantly, and she withdrew, unsure if she had crossed a line. But she didn't apologize. She wasn't here to be a ghost in her own life. That evening, Silas Boone rode in from the north pasture, his horse blowing steam into the cold air. He dismounted, eyes narrowing with concern, as he spotted Lily carrying firewood. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. Caleb stepped out of the barn. "Silas, I know who she is," Silas cut in, studying Lily with a mix of shock and sympathy. Whole town heard. Lily paused, unsure how to react, but Silas tipped his hat. "Good to have you back, ma'am." The simple respect in his voice made her chest ache. Caleb tensed. "Any news?" Silas's expression darkened. "Riders on the East Trail, 3 men, maybe more. Didn't come close, but they were looking around." The temperature in the air shifted. Caleb's jaw tightened. Lily felt the old fear crawl up her spine, cold and suffocating. "They're his men," she breathed. Caleb didn't deny it. "Could be." Silas spat into the dirt. "Judge Hartwell ain't done. You know that." Caleb nodded. "We're watchful. You keep eyes open." The ranch hand rode off, leaving a thick tension in the yard. That night, Lily helped Jake wash up and tucked him into bed. For a moment she hesitated, unsure if she had the right. But Jake lifted the blanket in silent invitation. She sat beside him, brushing his blonde hair gently. "Mama," he whispered, testing the word. Lily froze, breath trembling in her chest. "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you staying?" Lily bent down, kissing his forehead. "I will fight with everything I have to stay by your side." Jake smiled sleepily, then drifted off. Lily lingered, memorizing the rise and fall of his breathing, the soft curve of his cheek, the small miracles she thought she'd never see again. When she stepped outside Jake's room, Caleb was in the hall. He had heard. His expression was unreadable, guarded. "He's getting attached," he said quietly. "I know," Lily replied, standing straighter. "That's why I have to be honest, consistent, and here, every day. No running, no hiding. You ran before." The accusation stung. Lily met his eyes, firm and steady. "I was taken, and I came back on my own feet." Caleb's breath hitched just slightly, an emotion he didn't want her to see. "1 week," he reminded her. "I'm not counting the hours," she said softly. "But I am earning them." Over the next few days, the rhythm of the ranch shaped them. Lily's strength returned faster than she expected, the physical work grounding her. Caleb began to watch her differently. Not with suspicion, but with an uneasy, reluctant respect. She woke early, worked hard, stayed patient even when exhaustion tugged at her limbs. At night they ate together. Awkward, quiet meals where Jake filled the silence with stories about everything he loved. Horses, snow forts, Silas's tall tales. Lily laughed, a sound Caleb hadn't heard in years. Sometimes he caught himself staring at her, trying to reconcile the woman before him with the one he lost. But danger crept closer. Tracks appeared near the ridge. A distant campfire spotted in the trees. Voices carried on the wind from men who didn't belong to Bitter Creek. Each sign tightened Caleb's guard. Each sign made Lily sleep a little lighter, waking at the smallest sound. She refused to run, even when Caleb told her it was an option. "I didn't cross half the country to hide," she said. "If they come for me, they'll meet the truth. And they'll meet you." Caleb had no answer for that, only a tightening in his chest he didn't want to understand. On the 6th night, as the sky darkened into storm gray, Lily stood by the corral, watching snow drift over the hills. She sensed Caleb step beside her. He didn't speak at first. The silence between them was different now, no longer a barrier, but a question. "You're stronger than when you left," he said finally. Lily nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Pain can destroy you, or it can carve out a place for courage. I chose the second." Caleb studied her, the cold wind tugging at his coat. "I don't know if I can trust easy again," he admitted. Lily turned to him, her voice quiet but clear. "Then let me earn it slowly." He didn't pull away when she looked at him. He didn't hide. For the first time since she returned, Caleb Morgan allowed himself to see the woman she was now. Not a ghost, not a memory, but someone fighting her way back to him and the life stolen from her. But as the first howl of an approaching storm echoed over the ridge, both of them knew the hardest fight hadn't arrived yet. And the men from the east were no longer searching. They were coming. The storm announced itself long before it arrived. An eerie silence settled over the valley, the kind that made animals restless and stirred an old instinct in anyone who had lived long on western land. Snow clouds rolled in, heavy and low, swallowing the horizon, and the wind sharpened into a cold warning. Caleb stood on the porch, watching the sky sink into ash-gray darkness. He had seen storms like this before, but never with enemies riding closer on its heels. Inside, Lily prepared supper with practiced movements, her hands steadier than the fear growing quietly inside her. Jake sat at the table drawing horses, unaware of the danger creeping in from the east. Or perhaps sensing it, but trusting the adults to keep the world steady. When the first gust slammed against the windows, Lily flinched. Caleb glanced toward her. "Storm's here." She nodded without looking up. How bad? Bad enough that no decent man would be out in it. She understood the implication immediately. Her father's men were not decent. The blizzard descended like a curtain, wind howling against the house with a force that rattled the glass. Snow drove hard against the ground, piling fast, erasing tracks, blinding sight. Caleb checked the doors, the windows, the lanterns. Silas Boone had stayed to help, boarding up gaps, stacking extra firewood. "If they come tonight," Silas muttered, "they'll be fighting nature itself. Nature won't be enough to stop Hartwell." Caleb replied. The storm worsened, but inside the house, warmth flickered. Lily ladled stew into bowls, Jake's laughter filling the silence as he recounted stories Lily had never heard. Stories of his first horse, his fear of thunder, the time Caleb tried baking biscuits and nearly set the kitchen on fire. For a few breaths, it felt almost normal, almost a family. But normal shattered the moment Jake coughed. It wasn't a simple cough. It was sharp, deep, tearing. The bowl slipped from Lily's hands. Caleb spun around instantly. Jake tried to speak, but another cough seized him, harsher than the last. Within minutes, his skin flushed hot, sweat beading across his forehead. His breathing turned shallow. Panic stabbed through Lily. He was fine an hour ago. Caleb lifted Jake into his arms, feeling the heat radiating off the boy's body. "Fever," he said grimly. "Fast one." Silas grabbed his coat. "I'll ride for Dr. Burke." "Not in this storm," Caleb snapped. "You'll freeze before you reach town." The wind screamed outside, drowning any chance of argument. Jake shivered violently, his small body curling against Caleb's chest. Lily's hands shook as she touched his cheek. "Please, Jake. Please stay with me." Caleb laid him in their bed, the warmest room in the house, and Lily flew into motion. Cool cloths, water, blankets. Every instinct in her sharpened into a single force of desperation. Jake's breaths turned ragged, his skin burning. "Caleb, we need the doctor." "He's not getting through this storm," Caleb said, voice tight with fear he refused to show. "We take care of him. You and me." For hours they worked side by side, trading cloths, lifting Jake when he convulsed with fever chills, murmuring words of comfort into the darkness. Outside, the wind roared, battering the walls as though trying to tear the house apart. Lily sang softly to Jake, a lullaby she once hummed when he was an infant in her arms. Her voice trembled, but the melody wrapped around them like a fragile prayer. Caleb watched her with something fierce in his chest. An ache, a regret, a love he didn't dare name yet. Jake's fever climbed. He began to mumble in his sleep, calling for both of them in broken whispers. "Mama. Papa. Don't go." Lily pressed her forehead to his. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm here, my darling boy." Caleb heard the storm break something loose inside himself. The anger he had clung to for years dissolved, replaced by a deep, shattering sorrow for everything Lily had missed, everything Jake had lost. As dawn crept through the storm's thinning veil, Jake's fever finally broke. His breathing eased, the flush faded from his cheeks. Lily sagged in relief, tears falling silently. Caleb placed a hand on her back. A careful touch, a silent acknowledgement. She didn't pull away. She leaned into it. For the first time since she returned, they breathed together without fear wedging itself between them. But the storm had not brought only illness. It had carried something else with it. Footsteps crunched outside. Heavy, deliberate. Caleb stiffened. Silas, who had dozed in the chair near the door, shot upright. Lily froze. A harsh knock slammed against the wood. 1, 2, 3. The kind of knock meant to intimidate. Caleb's hand went to his holster. Silas grabbed the rifle from the mantel. The knock came again, louder. Then a voice, deep, cold, unmistakably authoritative. "Caleb Morgan, open this door." Lily paled. She knew that voice. Caleb opened the door a crack. Snow whipped inside. And there he stood. Judge Roderick Hartwell. Tall, impeccably dressed despite the storm. His coat lined with fur, his boots polished. His eyes, sharp, calculating, swept the room as though it belonged to him. Behind him stood 5 armed men, faces half hidden beneath scarves. "Step aside," Hartwell said, ice in every syllable. "I am here for my daughter." Caleb didn't move. "You're not stepping foot in this house." Hartwell smiled faintly. "You don't have a choice? I have authority, papers, legal claim. She is unstable, incapable of making her own decisions." "She's not going anywhere," Caleb growled. "You took her once, not again." Hartwell's gaze cut toward Lily, who stood in the hallway, trembling but refusing to hide. "You look terrible, my dear. Running tends to do that." Lily swallowed the terror rising in her throat. "You ruined my life. You will not take the rest of it." Hartwell stepped forward, menace rising behind his calm facade. "You belong under my supervision. You are my blood, my responsibility." "I am not your possession," Lily snapped. "And I am not insane." The men behind Hartwell fanned out, hands drifting toward weapons. Silas raised the rifle. Caleb stepped forward, his voice low and deadly. "Judge or not, you cross this threshold, I'll put you in the ground." Hartwell's eyes narrowed. Violence teetered on a knife's edge. Just one pull, one twitch, and the front room would erupt in gunfire. And then, a thunder of hooves. Fast, close, Hartwell turned sharply. Another group of riders emerged from the tree line, led by Matthew Blake, his badge glinting beneath his coat. "Judge Hartwell," Blake called out. "You're under arrest for false imprisonment, fraud, coercion, and kidnapping." Silas lowered his rifle slightly. Caleb didn't. Hartwell's face twisted into disbelief. "Don't you dare!" Blake cut him off. "I have sworn statements, evidence from Philadelphia, and federal authority behind me." The deputies surrounded Hartwell and his men before they could draw. Lily exhaled a breath she had held for years. Hartwell lunged toward her, fury unmasked. "You ungrateful little." Caleb stepped between them so fast, Hartwell nearly collided with him. "You're done," Caleb said. "She's free, and you're finished." Blake's deputies cuffed Hartwell, dragging him away from the porch as he cursed Lily's name. The storm had not stopped him, but the law finally had. And for the first time since she escaped, Lily felt safe. Caleb closed the door gently, but his hands were shaking. Lily stepped closer, her voice fragile. "It's over, Caleb." He looked at her as if seeing something he had long forgotten. "No," he whispered. "It's just beginning." But for the first time, beginning didn't feel like a threat. It felt like hope. The morning after Judge Hartwell's arrest broke with a quietness Bitter Creek hadn't known in years. Snow still clung to the rooftops and fences. But the storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean. Inside the Morgan ranch house, a different kind of calm settled. Thin, tentative, but real. Caleb stood in the doorway of Jake's room, watching his son sleep curled between wool blankets, his breathing soft and steady after the fever's brutal assault. The boy's cheeks had regained a healthy flush, and his small hand twitched lightly as he dreamed. Lily sat beside the bed, brushing a gentle thumb over Jake's knuckles as the pale morning light warmed her face. Caleb leaned quietly against the doorframe. Studying her from a distance, he was no longer sure he wanted to keep. She was exhausted. Dark shadows under her eyes, hair falling loose around her shoulders. But she looked more alive than she had any day since her return. Stronger, present, free. When she looked up and met his gaze, she didn't look away. "He's going to be all right," she whispered. Caleb nodded, stepping into the room. "You saved him." "We saved him," she corrected gently. Silence stretched, but not the old kind, not the brittle defensive silence they had lived in for days. This one held possibility, a slow rebuilding. "Lily," he began, "about yesterday." She shook her head. "You don't have to say anything yet." But he did, because something inside him had cracked open during the fever, during the storm, during the moment he stood between her and her father, with no hesitation at all. "4 years," he said quietly. "4 years I told myself you didn't want us. That you walked away and never looked back. It nearly destroyed me." Lily's breath trembled. "I know." "But you fought," he continued. "You crawled through hell to get back here, and I almost didn't let myself see it." No tears fell from Lily's eyes, but emotion welled there. Raw, deep, shining. "Caleb, I thought I'd never hold Jake again. I thought I'd die in that place, with his name being the last thing I said. Coming back here wasn't hope, it was desperation. But seeing you, seeing him, made me fight harder than ever." Her voice broke. "I didn't know if you'd believe me." Caleb stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth radiating from her. "I believe you," he said. "Every word." Lily exhaled shakily, relief flowing through her in a wave. But Caleb hadn't finished. "That week I gave you?" He paused, hesitant. "You've done more in 6 days than I ever expected." Lily swallowed. "So, what happens now?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Jake, their son, sleeping peacefully after surviving both storms and sickness. And with that sight anchoring him, Caleb finally found the truth he had been circling for days. "Now," he said softly, "we start over." Lily closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were full of something hopeful, fragile and overwhelming. "If you'll have me," she whispered. Caleb's reply came without a pause. "I never stopped. Life on the ranch did not transform instantly, but it shifted in small, meaningful ways. Lily settled into each day with a quiet determination, learning the land again, relearning the rhythm of ranch work, stitching herself into the life she had once built. Caleb helped her gently, no longer holding her at arm's length, no longer analyzing every word she spoke. They worked together, moved together, found comfort in the shared tasks of survival and rebuilding. Jake clung to Lily in a way that made both parents ache, like a child trying to make up for stolen years. He followed her everywhere, studying her with a devotion that was beautiful and heartbreaking. And Lily matched him with a mother's fierce tenderness, protecting him from shadows he didn't understand. The ranch hands noticed the changes too. Silas Boone tipped his hat respectfully when she passed. Martha Callahan came often with pies, blankets, and far too many questions. Burke stopped by to check on Jake and ended up staying for supper twice. The house slowly filled with warmth, laughter returning one small moment at a time. News of Judge Hartwell's arrest spread fast through Wyoming territory. Matthew Blake kept Caleb informed. Hartwell was facing serious charges: false imprisonment, document forgery, kidnapping, coercion, and abuse of legal authority. The wealthy judge who once controlled courts and newspapers now found himself on the other end of justice. Lily attended none of the hearings. She didn't need to hear her father's voice ever again. She chose the ranch, chose healing, chose Jake and Caleb and the life she'd once been denied. And day by day, the fear that he would return faded into the distance, like a memory finally losing its hold. One crisp spring afternoon, Caleb surprised Lily with a request that stopped her heart cold. They stood by the pasture fence, sun warming their backs as horses grazed nearby. Caleb looked nervous, a rare sight. "Lily," he began, "we lost 4 years. 4 years we should have had together. Years we'll never get back." She touched his arm gently. "We have now." He nodded. "We do, and I want to make it official again. Not for the town, not for the law, but for us." He took her hand, voice steady. "Lillian Hartwell Morgan, will you marry me again?" Tears spilled freely this time. Lily nodded, unable to speak at first. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Their wedding was small. A simple ceremony behind the ranch house, framed by open fields, clear skies, and the quiet presence of neighbors who had witnessed too much heartbreak to miss the joy blooming now. Martha cried openly. Silas straightened his best shirt 3 times. Jake stood proudly between his parents, holding Lily's hand with a possessive little grip. She wore a soft cream dress Martha helped her sew. No lace, no roses, no veil. Just something gentle and new. Caleb stood tall beside her, eyes steady, voice firm as he repeated vows he once believed he'd never say again. When the ceremony ended, Jake threw his arms around both of them, burying his face against Lily's stomach. "We're a family now," he whispered. "For real." Caleb looked at Lily. "For real," he agreed. Months passed, and spring bled into summer. The ranch flourished beneath the sun, fields greener, cattle stronger, laughter more frequent. Lily found herself humming as she worked, often without realizing it. Caleb found excuses to touch her, light brushes against her hand, a steadying arm around her waist, a kiss lingering on her cheek. Their marriage felt like rediscovery, each day carving away old pain and replacing it with something new, steady and warm. When Lily told Caleb she was pregnant, he froze, stunned, overwhelmed, breathless. Then he lifted her into his arms, laughing harder than he had in years. Jake, hearing the news, declared himself the best big brother the West will ever see. Hope Morgan was born on a clear autumn morning, her cries sharp and strong, her tiny fist gripping Caleb's finger with unyielding force. Lily held her daughter close, tears of joy soaking her hair. "Hope," she whispered, "because she brought us back to life." The ranch grew louder, warmer, fuller. Jake adored his sister. Caleb adored his family, and Lily finally felt whole. Their future wasn't perfect. It carried scars, memories, shadows. But it was theirs. Earned. Fought for. Reborn. And as the sun set behind the Wyoming hills one quiet evening, Lily stood on the porch with Hope in her arms and Caleb at her side, breathing in the life she had once feared she'd never touch again. Home was no longer a place she ran from or ran toward. It was here, beating steadily in the hearts of the people who loved her. A family rebuilt not by chance, but by courage. A love reborn not by innocence, but by survival. And a future shaped not by fear, but by hope. Soft, steady, and finally within reach.